Well, welcome to this social event, which will be mostly about thanking all who turned this event possible and hopefully a success, which, according to the number of attendees during today, is almost guaranteed. 779 registered participants from more than 80 countries. I hope you all got already some snacks and something to drink to follow us during the next 90 minutes. It will also be a session of remembrance of pioneers that have contributed outstandingly to the spread of conservation agriculture in many regions of the world. This part will be presented by our Brazilian colleague, Rafael Fuentes, who will recall those names. Of course, it won't be the still active pioneers, because for those, the entire evening would not be enough, and we certainly would miss many of them. A third component of this session will share with you memories about the history of the World Congresses on CA, starting with the very first one held 20 years ago in Madrid, equally organized by ICAF and co-organized by FAO. This part will be moderated by Emilio Gonzalez, Secretary General of ICAF, and still a youngster at that time of the first World Congress of Conservation Agriculture, where he already was part of the organizing team. He will be assisted in this remembrance by well-known personalities who you can already see in this social event panel, some of them following closely the follow-up of the first World Congress on Conservation Agriculture over the last 20 years. Finally, we have the pleasure to show you a performance about a very special friend, a co-worker without whose precious help our farming activity would be seriously endangered. Especially our way of farming, that is conservation agriculture. You may know him and even may have met him already, but I won't tell you more about him at this stage, as I prefer to hold you in suspense. Now I would like to express our thanks to all who contributed to the successful organization and now realization of this Congress. Of course, this starts always from the backstage, collaborators who many of them have exchanged with, emails, abstracts, questions, etc. To name Elizabeth Moreno, Julio Roman, Miguel Repullo, Jesus Rincon, and initially as well Antonio Olgado and Fabienne Bauer. Many thanks also to the many colleagues who were and are part of the different committees, such as the organizing committee, the scientific and technical committee, farmers committee, the bid committee for the selection of the venue of the 9th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture, the Congress Declaration Committee, etc. Many of them were and are carrying out important duties, such as reviewing abstracts, moderating and rapporteuring sessions today and in the next 2 days, and organizing as well this social event. Special thanks to the colleagues Tom Goddard and Joseph Kinsley, and also Saidi Mkomba, for organizing the plenary sessions on carbon markets tomorrow and on experience and investments in conservation agriculture and sustainable mechanization for smallholders in Africa on Wednesday. Of course, many thanks also to all participants, above all to those who submitted papers to the different sub-themes. We also thank FAO for its strong commitment to both conservation agriculture in general and to this Congress in specific, which was clearly demonstrated by the keynote delivered this morning by the Director General. Thanks to Hafiz Munyanov and Joseph Kinsley, who facilitated the engagement of FAO in this adventure on the road towards the 8th World Congress of Conservation Agriculture events of last year. Thanks for your key contribution to this event. My personal warmest regards also to the voluntary core team of the organizing committee that first met every month, then every 2 weeks, then even weekly, and lately even more than weekly. These were Bernhard Streit, Wolfgang Sturny, Andreas Wyss, Jana Epperlein, Emilio Gonzalez, Julio Roman, and Elizabeth Moreno, and
you.
No. Well, I feel a name is missing, but who?
Gottlieb.
No. I think now it came to my mind. I guess it's because he was working always in the background, almost undercover, to get this Congress organized. I'm sure all of you have heard of him. This is to say that the Oscar goes to, you see, we got this delivered recently, elected today by the Academy of Global CA. Oh, who would guess? Amir Kassam. Well, Amir, I think I speak on behalf of all of us when saying that you were the heart pumping all the stream needed to make this Congress happen, even before the last Congress in Argentina. Thank you so much for all your efforts. I think this Oscar is also for your long life engagement and struggle to have CA practice today worldwide on more than 200 million hectares. And I'm sure you will not rest until we double this area. But now enough of compliments. I think we can look back on a very successful start of this Congress with an overwhelming participation of important, influential people, Director General of FAO, the EU commissioners and Swiss government representatives, and also from international organizations and from the global CA community of practice, from every region and sub-region. We all perceive that global political and institutional support is a major step forward for the CA global community, including the farmers. Therefore, I repeat my thanks to all speakers in the opening session, but also in the panels for their much appreciated support. Finally, also a word of appreciation about the excellent and highly professional work carried out by the team of Black Pearl Production to set up this virtual and very appealing event platform, always trying to do their best. And now, saying this, I pass over to Wolfgang to share with us his impressions. Wolfgang, please.
Thank you, Gottlieb. No, you can leave it.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, dear friends, I would like to thank a number of great persons on behalf of Swiss No-Till. Thanks to an excellent presentation on behalf of Swiss No-Till, but also of ICAF at the 7th World Congress in Argentina. Fabian Bauer brought the 8th World Congress to Switzerland. The main asset was the diversity of CA within a small European area, including vegetable crops. The local organizing committee of Swiss No-Till has therefore formed a small association for the 8th World Congress with as president Andreas Wyss and the members Katrina Ritter, my wife Iris, Bernhard Streit, Jörg Lauper, and I. We've had our 26th meeting this morning at 7 o'clock. Thanks a million to the volunteer work of that hardworking team. Due to the COVID pandemic, the 8th World Congress has been postponed by 1 year to this 25th week of the year 2021. With the help of the local enterprise Black Pearl, which Gottlieb already mentioned, under the supervision of Sylvie Morganek and Roger Lehmann, we are able to hold the Congress virtually from Bern. Thank you so much. As part of the 8th World Congress, it was planned to have the largest field days in Switzerland this year on June 24th and 25th, with about 1,000 to 1,500 visitors on various topics, providing a concrete view of CA in all its diversity. Host is the penitentiary estate Witzwil in Gampelen, which is about 40 minutes drive from Bern. But again, due to COVID pandemic, we needed a special solution. Small groups. They were and are still visiting almost daily throughout June. On an area of 30 hectares, a specialized team with the help of a wide range of support organizations has set up demonstration plots with about 40 different stations where current research and practical results in CA are presented. Almost countless times we had to start the planning from scratch and adjust it again and again. The 6-year main crop rotation with all the different green manures and green manure mixtures in between were put in place for the second time from last summer until late spring this year. Special thanks go therefore to Dominique Fleury, Jean-Daniel Etter, and Adrian von Niederhäusern, as well as to Alfred Bourry, Roger, Markus Pfaffli, and Hans-Peter Heberli. Coming to this first day, today, there are simply no words of thanks for the outstanding inaugural lecture of Amir Kassam. What a hard-working and deeply faithful CA visionary he is. CA is his lifestyle, his way of life. Thank you very much indeed for all the passionate devotees. Thanks also to the 4 panel sessions, to the people talking in the farmer session, followed by the private sector session, the public sector session, the civil society session. A lot of very good talks, questions and answers. Thank you so much. I'll pass over to Gottlieb.
Thank you, Wolfgang, for these nice words, and also to the whole Swiss team that stood behind and still stands behind the success of this Congress. Without your dedication and strong efforts and many hours of work, this all could not have happened. And the insistence actually to have a presential field days here is extraordinary. Otherwise, I guess I even wouldn't have come to Bern these days. But luckily, I hope to see still something on Thursday and Friday on the field. This is really a great job you did. So many thanks from ICAF to the Swiss No-Till and all the people that contributed and helped you to set all this up. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gottlieb. I will pass on all these words of thanks.
Please do so.
And I personally also thank you very much indeed, Gottlieb. You are the same guy as all the other ones. It's just a passion. And otherwise we could not do what we do.
That's right, that's right.
What all the people here did before us. Yeah. Thank you so much, Gottlieb.
Thanks a lot. Well, with these words, I want to pass over right away to our colleague Rafael Fuentes, who is in charge to make the remembrance of the pioneers and also and so Rafael, please, it's your turn now to do this part of this social event. Good luck.
Thank you, Gottlieb. Hello, CA friends all over the world. At this moment, I want to remember Herbert Bartz, our unforgettable CA pioneer that passed away this year. Herbert Bartz was born in Rio do Sul, Santa Catarina, Brazil, in February 1937, son of German immigrants. Destiny meant that his family had to return to Germany at the worst possible time, just before World War II. The boy Herbert survived Dresden bombing. The tragedy made him conceive a dream of being a farmer, and so he could help feed the world. He thought that one day it would be possible to return to Brazil, where food and heat would not be lacking, like his mother used to say. The dream of feed the world began to come true when Herbert and family returned to Brazil in 1960 to Rolândia, northern Paraná state, in a 100 hectares farm where the family settled to produce grain crops, mainly soya and wheat, honoring the last wish of his mother. After 10 years of doing this type of agriculture, Herbert could not accept the erosion caused by tropical rain over the tilled soil. In 1971, during a rainfall event of strong intensity, about 100 millimeters per hour, Herbert walking in his soybean crop and observed severe erosion with broken terraces and seedlings uprooted and carried out by runoff. It was at this moment that his obsession to find an alternative to the conventional till was born. Since that moment, Herbert followed a trajectory that marked the beginning of conservation agriculture on a commercial scale in Brazil and Latin America. But from that moment in 1971, he began to search for methods for seeding crops with any land preparation. He was inspired and found the first answer from two persons that he visited in USA, Harry Young, a farmer, and Shirley Phillips, an extension agronomist, who were doing no-tillage farming and research in Christian County, Kentucky, since 1962. They had been inspired by the book Plowman's Folly of Edward Faulkner, published in 1943, that was the first warning against the harmful effects of using plows to prepare agricultural land. What were Herbert's main achievements? First achievement, from 1972, he made the initial adaptation of no-tillage to tropical conditions in collaboration with Rolf Derpsch, and between 1974 and 1976, he attracted the first pioneer followers as Uemura family, Nono Pereira, and Frank Dijkstra, and inspired pioneer research in IAPAR, my institution, and Embrapa Wheat Center. His brother Yuli was always his silent, unconditional supporter since the beginning on his own farm. Second achievement, from the final 70s, together with his inseparable partners Nono Pereira and Frank Dijkstra, influenced other farmers at the national level, influenced official research, influenced universities and chemical and equipment industries. Third achievement, during the 80s and early 90s, he influenced the formation of farmers' organization at the national level and in the South Cone and Latin America. It was achieved the continental reaching. For achievement, in the second half of the 90s, Herbert reached world dimension through FAO and World Bank, where his close contact with the Vice President, Kyle Wasser, made it possible to flare up the no-tillage study tours to Brazil in order to spread the system worldwide, permitting to establish CA concept. For 3 times, he was president of Brazilian No-Till Farmers Federation. And in the last mandate, from 2010 and 2012, promoted a deep modernization of the CA systems and methods and sources of funding. He was awarded with Apolonio Salles Medal of Brazilian Government in 2009, the Pine Tree Order of Paraná State Government in 2013, and the auspicious title of Doctor Honoris Causa granted by Londrina State University in 2013. I personally had the opportunity to behave and traveling with him in the last 15 years. Herbert, always ready to transmit his huge knowledge to everyone, everywhere. Since the 70s, he traveled voluntarily, receiving nothing in financial terms. All Brazil, South America, and other countries to disseminate no-till and conservation agriculture. Talking with farmers and professionals in meetings and with the students in classes, but also open his farm for visits of people from all around the world. Once he answered to criticisms that undisturbed soils were causing soil compaction. He said, soil compaction is not a problem. Major problem is brain compaction. Lately, he appeared with other memorable statement. Nature doesn't accept bribes. Herbert represents and still represents for all of us the cloud of the innovative human being, restless, determined, and a warrior. Thank you, Herbert. We will follow your example and honor your legacy. I now request Herbert's daughter, Marie, to kindly tell us more about him as a father, as a farmer, and as a human being. But first, maybe production will show a small video about Herbert's life. Thank you very much.
During the plant season of 71, my farm was hit by terrible rainfalls, causing big damages in erosion. I was in a very big despair and tried desperately to find a solution. Looking on my part of my farm where the rainforest was still alive, and saw that the same rainfalls fell on that part without causing any damage. That inspired me to find a solution copying what nature's demonstrated to us. Talking with my colleagues, with my friends of research, they told me that there were guys in England, United States, doing a different technique that is called no-till, without touching, without moving the soil. as there was no written, no better information, I decided quickly to buy a ticket to go to England and to the United States. As I had no money, I bought it with the compromise to pay it on my way back. And there on this travel, I learned what the farmers did. They planted into the residues with special equipment. And I ordered one of these equipments from the United States by the simplest fact that in Brazil there was nothing available that could do the same job. When I came back in the October of 72, 1 year later, the planter had arrived. I put it in my field. And as I had lost all my before winter crop by a terrible frost, I was obliged to sell my conventional equipment and do all the acreage, in spite of only an experimental region, in the new technique. That was something really considered crazy, and all the people thought I was losing my good sense. But I had no option. I find a solution, I stop farming. That was my conclusion. So, in the lack of anything, we come to the no-till system. The only thing is that we are commenting these facts in the 8th International Convention of No-Till in Switzerland. And when you will learn more, you will see how we did it to manage these things. Das war kurz, ne? Zu kurz.
So it's to me now. Okay, thank you, Rafael. Thank you, all the organization. And I will try to tell you a little bit more about my father. Well, in fact, it really took much time to write these words. Not because it's hard to say anything about my dad, but mainly because I miss him a lot yet, and his partnership we had. At least I'm certain that he's looking and guiding me and all of us from where he is now. Who had the opportunity to know him, know how expansive, talky, and communicative Herbert was, besides his unique sense of humor. He was always doing jokes, keeping people and an environment happy with a high level of good energies, and of course, always telling his amazing life stories and sharing knowledge. I'm Herbert Bartz's youngest daughter, from 3 children. The other 2 are boys, Johan and Wieland. The oldest, Wieland, unfortunately passed away at the age of 12 in the end of the 90s. One of the most shocking situation and moment of silence I could see in that. It was the first time I saw my father cry. I was 9-year-old at the time. But going a little bit back in the time yet, just to you understand how life has a perfect way to lead us in this existence. What that began as a movement in Brazil through the no-tillage in the beginning, that later became the no-tillage system in Brazil and conservation agriculture worldwide, is already so amazing because this movement united farmers in a way that was never seen in the history of agriculture. And the first step of this movement was the grounding of the Earthsong Club in 1979, together with other farmers, exactly the same year when I was born. As a kid, I saw events happening in the farm, and that's traveling a lot. He donated a lot of his time to this cause, in a way that for many times he couldn't reach family issues. For example, my ballet presentations or our plays of musical instruments. And yes, my dad and my mother, they provide an amazing education for us. We had musical classes, ballet, judo, folk dancing groups, and of course, language classes. And German was our mother tongue. Although we lived in Brazil, we learned at first German at home, and after Portuguese just when we went to the kindergarten in the school. And it was one of Dad's rules when he married my mother, to speak German at home. And who met Dad and I together knows that it was strong among us, that it was so strong among us that we only spoke in German to each other, independent who was near or where we were. And the second rule was in their marriage was to live in the farm. And you don't have idea how grateful I'm about this. Because all this love, all this respect to the soil, to the nature, was built in us by this direct contact with farming and nature in our childhood, and through both, to that and to my mother influences. That through the farming, and my mother to her love for plants and gardening. As kids, we knew that Dad was the pioneer of no-tillage in Paraná states. And we always said in the school to our colleagues, but we didn't have idea of what it meant and how important and how big was this movement at the time. And I began to realize it when it started in 1999. I began to go with that in the meetings and events promoted by the Brazilian No-Till Farmers Federation. And this consolidated in me a path of no return. I was studying biology at that time. I was already married with a 2-year-old son, but each year was more involved with what Dad and the other farmers and researchers widespread about no-tillage system. In the way that I decided to do my first researches in my graduation course yet with soil biology. I begin with soil microbiology and mycorrhiza fungi, but they were too small to me. I wanted and I needed to work with visible organisms in soil, something that I could touch. And I found my way when I met George Brown, a famous earthworm researcher. I call him until today my scientific father. And Dr. Brown introduced me to the soil macrofauna and to the amazing earthworm world. I really felt in love to the earthworm taxonomy, which is the science of identification and description of new species. And my PhD studies were the proof of how that's work, and what I was studying merged perfectly. In part of my studies, I created a classification to no-tillage system sites regarding the quantity and the number of species of earthworms. And it was also when I discovered the first native Brazilian earthworm in a farmland, a new and undiscovered species in Dad's farm, the legendary Renania farm, as I call it, with 35 years under no-tillage system at that time. I was then able to describe and to name this new species in honor to Dad and his achievements, naming this new earthworm species as Phimoscolex bartzi. Dad didn't go to university, and due that, some researchers said he was unqualified to reach what he do with no-tillage in Brazil, and many of them called him the crazy German from Hollandia who planted in the wheat. That was not so good to express and to show to us, his children, his appreciation of our achievements. It's a German cultural issue, this behavior, and I see it in me also sometimes. But to other people outside, he always expressed his pride, his happiness in what we were doing. And in my case, usually he said I was explaining scientifically what he, an unqualified farmer, and other farmers have said for more than 30 years. All this almost 22 years traveling with Dad, I was able to meet a lot a lot of amazing people along Brazil and different countries and realities. In fact, I'm here today because my father. And I know most of you do him. Sorry. And in all these trips, like for example, to Paraguay and to Germany with Rolf Debsch, they are for me valuable moments and experience of learning for me. I was also so fortunate to take Dad and his brother Uli to Australia in the occasion of the 5th World Congress of Conservation Agriculture, held in Brisbane in 2011. Dad had his other brother Arnold living in Australia since the 80s, and that trip was the last time that the three brothers were united and could spend some time together. Unfortunately, Herbert's brother, the lawyer Squire Uli, passed away in December 2018. The other brother, Arnold, in November 2019. And this year was that time. He left us for a new stage in his evolution. And I, better than anyone else, know how much he earned this rest. I'm grateful for all this time I had with my dad, and now it's my duty to honor him, continuing widespreading his history and his achievements, and working in science to prove in the biology view what no-tillage systems does for good. Next year, in 2022, we will be celebrating 50 years of no-tillage system in South America. A half of century conserving and protecting our soils and environment. And thanks to our crazy German. So what I would like to ask all of you to be aware to the news of the Brazilian No-Till Federation in the next months and to the next year, because we will really do a huge celebration in Foz do Iguaçu, Brazil, and also do the first world meeting in no-tillage system, honoring our pioneers, farmers' work. Thank you so much for the organization of the World Congress for this opportunity, and of course all the friends for this moment and remembrance for my dad. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Marie.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Marie, for this emotional remembrance of your father, which I also had the occasion to meet and to travel with him to Ukraine together with Nono. It was an unforgettable journey, and it was really nice to be with both of them, always fighting each other. So now I would like to pass over to Emilio Gonzalez, who will, make a brief reminiscence of the World Congress processes starting in 2001 with the first one in Madrid. And we have here with us a few fellows who accompanied this process over many, many years. Thank you for joining us. Emilio, please turn over.
Excuse me, Gottlieb.
Yeah.
Excuse me to break the protocol. I am supposed to make a tribute, mention another pioneers and champions who have passed away in recent years. Richard Fowler, agriculturalist from South Africa, in June 2010. Mzee Swalehe, Shaban Swalehe, farmer from Tanzania, in August 2011. Guy Lafont, research scientist from Canada, in April 2013. Nono Pereira, farmer from Brazil, in September 2015. John Ashburner, agricultural engineer from the UK, in May 2017. Dirceu Gassen, agronomist from Brazil in September 2018. José Dampiro, agriculturalist from Mozambique in June 2019. Berto Hansmann, development expert from Germany in November 2019. Colin Piggin, research agronomist from Australia in November 2020. Lucien Seguier, research scientist from France in April 2020. Padi Cury, agronomist from Brazil in June 2021. Please, I would like to ask 1 minute of silence. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Rafael, for this remembrance. We almost slipped out of our mind. Now, Emilio, please, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Gottlieb. And after this touching moment, it's going to be difficult to start. I would say a nicer part of the social event. But I would like to start saying that, well, although the tango says that 20 years is nothing, in this case, many things have happened indeed in our community. We have strengthened links, friendships, we have traveled a lot, helped and learned from each other. And with the support of our FAO colleagues, we have been able to organize as a community 8 World Congresses on Conservation Agriculture. Spain, Brazil, Kenya, India, Australia, Canada, Argentina, and now Switzerland. I won't say the country where it will be the 9th World Congress, but I tell you, just as a spoiler, half a spoiler, it will be a 9th World Congress, so the list will keep on growing. I would like to thank all the colleagues that have organized, participated, and contributed to the success to the World Congresses, not only this one, but the rest as well. But I would like to especially thank and recognize today those who almost started from scratch. Today, we have with us the first president of ICA, Luis Garcia Torres, who together with some FAO enthusiasts, maybe crazy people by that time, Pepe Benitez and Theodore Friedrich, and with a young team, also a little bit crazy, coordinated by Armando Martinez, with Antonio Olgado, Manolo Gomez, and I was also part of that team. And all of them are online. We also have online Rolf Derch, who was key to the first meeting of Relaco in late 90s, 97. So Rolf, Theo, Pepe, and all the rest, huge thanks for your enduring insights, for your relentless work on CA globally ever since. Million thanks on behalf of the CA community. And I would like to show a proof of what I'm saying. You see, I hope the camera takes it. You see, this is the medal that, Luis, you remember it? Armando, we got it for 2001. And this is the medal of the first World Congress on Conservation Agriculture in Madrid, 2001. And this is the book. I don't know if you can still find it in the shops, but this is the first book of abstracts of the World Congresses on Conservation Agriculture series. So thank you very much again to all of you. Theo, I would like you to say some words and pass over you. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you, Emilio. Well, I would like to tell a little bit about the FAO history in all this from the very early years. Professionally, I was always interested in soil tillage and obviously in the problems of soil tillage and no tillage systems. And already since my study times in the 70s, the name of Rolf Derbsch always crossed my path as the authority on no-tillage at a time when not tilling the soil didn't really seem to be a valid proposition. But it was only when I joined FAO as agricultural engineer in 1994 that I could dedicate more time to the topic of soil tillage and the problems of soil tillage, as I had the charge to work on environmental aspects of agricultural mechanization. And in this, I traveled in 95 to countries like Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, came across the already developing no-till system in Brazil, and in Uruguay and Paraguay, it was still in the infancy. It was in the first years of grappling. I met the work of Rolf Derbsch, who by that time had moved from Brazil to Paraguay. And back in FAO, since soil tillage has to do with soils, I linked up with my colleague Jose Benitez, we call him Pepe, and we decided to work together on this and to develop an FAO work around the issue of reducing tillage, conservation tillage. And we organized a first workshop in 1997 in May in IITA, Nigeria, with Brazilian experts for Portuguese and Spanish-speaking African countries on conservation tillage, bringing that concept to the respective African countries. 1 month later, we had a second regional workshop in Harare, Zimbabwe, for Eastern and Southern African countries. In that occasion, the African Conservation Tillage Network was founded. And in the same year, 1997, we had the meeting of the Latin American Conservation Tillage Network in Morelia, Mexico. And Rolf Derbsch attended this paper and myself. And that was the meeting where we decided that conservation tillage is actually not a good term because you cannot till and conserve the soil at the same time. And what we were doing already at that time was much more than only attending tillage. We were talking about a new type of agriculture. So we decided to coin the term conservation agriculture for Relaco, but in FAO, Pepe and myself decided that this would be also our working title for the FAO work. We developed a definition around conservation agriculture, which is still the valid, globally accepted definition for conservation agriculture. And we created a multidisciplinary work group with Pepe Benitez from Land and Water, with Joseph Kinsler, Lawrence Clark, John Ashburner, and myself from the engineering service, Thomas Bachmann from plant production and protection, Manuel Sanchez from animal production, and Walter de Oliveira from the economics service. So we had a very early multidisciplinary work group organizing other regional workshops around the topic. The next one was in 1999 in Shortandi, Kazakhstan, following a World Bank study on conservation tillage in the Soviet Union countries, or the former Soviet Union countries. And in those years, in the end of the 1990s and the early 2000s, the World Bank organized also yearly study tours to Brazil on the topic of the no-till systems. And I had the pleasure to attend in 2000 the study tour to Brazil. This was another very important tool to spread the topic of reducing tillage of no-tillage systems to African countries, but also to Asian countries. We had in 2001 a workshop in Lahore, Pakistan for Southern Asia. And in the same year, in 2001, we had the first World Congress on Conservation Agriculture in Madrid, as Emilio had already mentioned. That really changed the global picture. After that World Congress, I noticed that there was all over the world a movement around conservation agriculture. Countries that had been long into no-till systems started to diversify, started to adopt the pillars of of conservation agriculture and develop the new agricultural system around conservation agriculture. So we saw a movement globally starting after that. From FAO, we organized then in 2002 in Jinja a workshop around the mechanization. This morning we heard a lot about the importance of mechanization for smallholder farmers around CA, and in Jinja that was the first time we brought Brazilian manufacturers with their equipment to Africa to introduce the technologies, to make them meet with African mechanics and workshops and farmers and policymakers. And from that also we managed to introduce this kind of equipment in Africa and in other parts of the world. So from those developments, we noticed in FAO that we got an increased number of requests for conservation agriculture projects, which were attended by the different members of our CA group. And I myself was involved in field activities in Mongolia, in Kazakhstan, in Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, China, North Korea, India, Bangladesh, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Mozambique, South Africa, Namibia, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Cuba, and lately in Bolivia. And probably I missed out a number of them. And I could also meet pioneers that had worked on these systems since a very early time. For example, Brian Oldreef in Zimbabwe since the 1980s, or Professor Gao Huanweng, who had started the CA work in China in the 1990s. So that was a very interesting time. And another highlight was then in July 2003, that in Brisbane, the ISTRO conference, the conference of the International Soil Tillage Research Organization, organized a session around conservation agriculture, around a no-till system, which really made a big splash in ISTRO. And since then, we saw the development of the World Congresses and of the movement, as we had heard this morning. But I would like to return to the very early years and give the word to Rolf Derbsch, who was this pioneer, and to tell us a bit about these very first years when he was doing something which no one really thought was sensible to do in agriculture, to try to farm without and to develop a system of farming without tillage. Rolf, the word is yours. The microphone.
Do you hear me now? Thank you very much, Theo, for your words, and I would like also to thank Emilio, Rafael, Gottlieb, and last but not least also Marie Bartz. And I intended to show you some slides of my first experiences, my first research project on no-tillage, but I had the computer crash down and I could not get these old pictures in time. I thought that I start with my history in no-tillage or in something close to it, and when I was assigned to Africa in Somalia, and I will be very short, I promise you. I'm starting very, very early, 1966. But one thing struck me in Africa, that these people were with very simple implements doing a minimum tillage on the surface and having good results. And our project in those days was the GTZ project. And in those days, they did not believe much in the local experiences. What they did is when we received a plow from Germany, a moldboard plow, and compared to this very simple methods Africans were using, it was a disaster for the plow. So then my next assignment was in Brazil with 4 colleagues of us that started in 1968, and we were doing research on 5 experiment stations in the south of Paraná. And then after 3 years of working together before, we decided that one of us has to go to the north of Paraná, where the red soils are, and as the other all had children in school, they couldn't go to such a far place and without good schools for their children. So I was elected to go to Londrina and did for 2 years the first research plot in no-tillage. And this got me very enthusiastic about this technique. So the Yapar Institute of Research in Paraná called me to have a project in Londrina, where I had worked before, and that is how this whole movement got into the rails. And everybody was telling others that we are absolutely crazy, that no-tillage cannot work. So I experienced all this time with great opposition, and even later in the 80s and 90s, it's incredible how some people didn't believe at all in this technology. And my next assignment was in Paraguay, and I had the great fortune to be able to ask 3 of the pioneers of Brazil. Nobeleda died already, Frank Deisler and Herbert Bartz. And this was a great thing to be together with these people, with their experience. But in those days, institutions like Embrapa, where some regional institutes were against material, said it cannot work. But after doing some research, they discovered, yes, it works, and it works almost everywhere. So we did a publication in those days on all of our experiments, which I have right now here. Yeah. This is by GDZ, and we had interesting time and good results in Londrina. But as the session is prolonging in its time, I will leave it here and let other speakers continue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rolf. What a visionary career and work. And let me now pass to another visionary, my colleague Pepe Benitez, who was, among the creators, together with Luis Garcia and Emilio from ECAF, of the first World Congress, who who had the vision that conservation agriculture would merit something like a World Congress, and not only one Congress, but a series of congresses in which we are now in the 8th Congress. So, Pepe, could you tell us a bit more from your side about this first World Congress and how FAO got involved?
Well, good afternoon, all my friends and colleagues in this meeting. It's already lunchtime here where I'm now living. So, I want to really...
Pepe, we don't see your face. No te vemos la cara ahora.
Yeah.
Un poquito más atrás.
Remember, excuse me?
Not yet.
Well, I prefer that you hear me instead to see me.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the only position that I have. I want to remember year 1999. August, I met first time with Luis Garcia Torres. He went to Rome, and we have a very nice encounter meeting, discussing possibilities of joint activities between ICAF and FAO. Then we met again with Luis Garcia in Kazakhstan, in a workshop in Kazakhstan in November 1999. We just come up with more ideas, what we can do to really become a very good partnership between ICAF and FAO. In the same 1999, it was decided to have the second ICAF meeting in Italy, in Vasto Chieti. I helped Michele Pisante to organize the meeting. And of course, it was a very nice delegation for the countries that already were member of ICAF. I remember Gottlieb Bach was there, Jan Perling, Pedro González Fernández, Armando Martínez, José Luis Prado, Antonio Valera, and so on. In this meeting, of course, I was invited to describe the meetings and activities of CA. This was already mentioned by Theo, but we were well advanced in this year. We already have the network in South and Central America, also in Africa, the ACP, Eurasia also, and then I refer to them that before we have the meeting in Chieti, the Conservation Agriculture Working Group was set up. I'm right. So 1999 was really a year of where this idea of the first World Congress should be organized. We just interchange ideas about possible program, and even we set up a tentative steering committee using ICAF members, FAO, and also representatives from America, Africa, and Asia. I remember that it was Luis Garcia Torres, Friedrich Tebruch, Vic Jordan, Michele Pisante, Gabriela Cruz, Dennis Chatelier, Armando Martinez Vilela, Luis Garcia Torres, and some representatives from America, Africa, and Asia. But as usual, when we think big, we need big money. So it was our main problem. We start doing numbers. So what the organizers in Madrid needs is some money to invite some participants, farmers, practitioners from Brazil, from countries where conservation agriculture was well advanced. I managed to more or less come up with a letter of agreement of $40,000. It was hard to get the signature of my director of Land and Water. It was Mr. There was a German guy, who for 2 times he just did say that it was too much money. At the end, we got the money, And this money we use for provision of travel expenses, tickets, terminal expenses, lodging, and meals for up to 8 participants who would be resource persons in the Congress. A report of the Congress to summarize all the significant findings. At the end, I think we have more than 7 participants, country farmers representative, 8 participants as a resource person. So I think that's why some of my Brazilian colleagues attend the meeting. Some of them were mentioned. And of course, during this meeting, my colleagues, my Brazilian colleagues, start talking with me and saying, look, Pepe, we would like to organize the...
It seems...
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm using the smartphone, so I cannot put in air mode because I cannot have the connection. This get together with Brazilians started in 1992. We decided to have a training course for Latin Americans and Central American people. We have this training course in Argentina, and I went to Brazil to contact some resource person. So I meet during this trip Marcos Vieira, Ademir Calegari, and then the 2 years later, we start a sub-regional project using Japan funds, and 5 countries of Latin America was members of this sub-regional project. Was Paraguay, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru. But Peru at the end was not really joined the project. So I met in this during this project Roel Dersch. So I invite him to attend this study tour that we have with all these participants or the nationals who were involved in this project to visit Brazil. So it was a very nice trip. We went along Santa Catarina, Paraná, and then we just passed the boundary to go to Paraguay. So I think this very good friendship and partnership with Brazilians was very fruitful. Some of the projects that Theo mentioned, we have always experts from Brazil. I have to say that the first Congress was a big success. 70 countries were represented, 5 continents, 600 people attended today's Congress. We have a very nice field visits in Segovia. Then we also just have the presence of most of all the different networks that were promoting CA, like RELACO, CIRAT, ACT, ECAF, WANFA, Central Asia, APDC, etc., etc. We also share our publications, a number of publications that we were printed just for this purpose of the meeting. Then we just start talking about the possibility of a declaration, what is called Madrid Declaration. So I think we were very fortunate to meet with Garcia Torres. We was very fortunate to meet other people, and for me, it was very happy and lucky to work closely with Theodor Friedrich. He was not just a friend; he was my adopted son. because he was very young when he joined the FAO. I think I was just more than approaching 50 years old. Theo was only 35 or 36 years old. That's what I remember. So I'm very pleased, and I think very thankful for this invitation to really tell us some of the details of how we organized the first Congress. But I think Luis Garcia will provide more insights on this first meeting that really come up with very interesting insights, especially the book that was published, having Luis Garcia Torres as the main promoter and author of this publication. Thank you. Luis Garcia.
Well, thank you, Pepe. Thank you, Pepe. I'll continue. Time is running, but I think by acclamation, I will ask the chair for some extra minutes for this session. We started a little bit later than expected, and I'm sure that you will all agree with me that we cannot leave this session without listening to Luis, to Armando, and
then stop talking and
please,
pass over the word to Luis, please.
So, please.
Whenever you like, as Emilio knows, I have written a couple of sheets with some ideas about the early ICAF steps. But at this time, I have to say that most of those ideas has been mentioned even a couple of times by previous speaker. So very little new ideas to add in my case. Just to say that I am very, very happy to participate in this 8th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture. It is very emotive for me to refresh, to remind, to see the faces of people who work with whom I work so happily and efficiently. Just finally to add that I, of course, wish a strong best wishes for ICAF, conservation, agriculture, and everybody. So I am at this position. I am retired, 6 years completely retired in my place of Spain. But if you come over to this part of Spain, I will be very pleased to see any of you. Okay, Emilio?
Thank you. Maybe too short, Luis. Okay, you give more time to Armando. Because I know Armando has a
Emilio.
surprise for us. Armando.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. Do you hear me? Yes? Okay. So I'm very happy also to be here and to see faces that some of them I haven't seen you in almost 20 years. So I must say that for me it's a very emotional moment. And I have here still the cowbell you present me when I left a cup. That you can say here, it says that no till we meet again. So we meet again. So finally, so I'm very happy to be here. I see Wolfgang there. So I must say that when we organize this event, I'm going to be short, Gottlieb. I know that you always want to finish on time, on schedule. So I will be fast. But I must say that for me it was a really important experience. I must say that we organized an important event, and after 20 years, I'm now working in the regional government of Andalusia in agriculture. At this time, we are now working on the new agrarian policy for the next 7 years until 2027 with the new common agricultural policy. now the things that are on the table is what we were working 20 years ago, is the need to preserve the soil, the biodiversity, the water. So we were on the right track, but we still have a lot of work to do. We now have to work on how to more develop this. The share of, for example, in Andalusia, the share of conservation agriculture in perennial crops is very good, but not in other crops, in annual crops. And we have a lot of work to do. So I'm really expecting that this 8th Congress will be also a success. Has been today. I have seen very interesting speeches, and here I am. I expect to be working with you and seeing in another 10 years. So nothing like that.
We will call you next week, Armando.
Yeah.
We will call you next week for the next subsidy program.
I'm very happy to see thought of Freddy, Jose Benitez, Rolf, of course, Luis Garcia Torres, my first boss, also Gottlieb, my second boss. A lot of people here that I really appreciate, and I'm very happy to be here. Also, my colleagues, Antonio and Emilio, we were 27 years old at that time when we were organizing that event, and for us was really a very important experience in our lives. So thank you very much. Bye.
Armando.
Thank you, Armando. Thank you also, Antonio, for being here. I think I will leave the floor now clear to Gottlieb. And my final word is just we've been together with pioneers today and with champions, and we hope that this Congress will be able to create more champions in more countries and will help develop conservation agriculture. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you for joining.
Well, sorry, Emilio, but well, you invited Antonio, and now you skipped him.
Sorry. Yes. No. Sorry, I was.
Okay. Sorry, Antonio. Have you anything to add or to give your ideas or views on your time in ICAF, and what about you now?
Okay. Hello. Well, nice to see many people that I have met during these 20 years. When I left ICAF just 2 years ago, and I had the opportunity to know most of you during the time I was working for ICAF. Was involved, as you have already said, in the organization of the first World Congress. It was my first job. It was very hard, but it was a great experience. It was amazing to organize this kind of event. And well, I was starting to organize the first steps of the organization of this 8th World Congress when I left. It was hard for me to leave ICAF at that moment, because I was happy with this experience. But well, it was an opportunity for me, and so that's why I decided to leave. And just to say thank you to all of you for your commitments when we were working together. Wolfgang, I know you have been working very hard for this organization, for the organization of these events. Also, as Gottlieb, Emilio, and the rest of people. And well, that's all. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you, and that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for your words. It was also a pleasure to work with you that time. Well, now we are coming to a performance, biodiversity performance. I think I don't know whether Marie already knows this performance, but it's something very special because, well, it's about a friend of ours, who most of you met already. And well, if there was not this situation, and also even a different situation that the lady who will make this performance has today another commitment, listening to other friends, she would be here with us. But well, instead we are seeing a film she produced some time ago. So listen now to the biodiversity performance done by Barbara Geiger, Brems Tierleben, and she is Fräulein Barbara. Please show the film.
Hello and welcome to Fräulein Brehm's Life of Animals. Have you heard of Alfred Brehm and his wonderful Life of Animals? Back in the 1800s, it was a bestseller. Today, you're about to witness Fräulein Brehm's Life of Animals, and that Fräulein, that's me. Don't ask if we're related. Fact is, without Alfred, there would be no Fräulein. In the beginning, there was Alfred, and just like Alfred Brehm, Fräulein Brehm looks deeply into the lives and times of animals. The following story is not fictitious, and any similarity to actual creatures, living or dead, has been scientifically observed and carefully noted. The earthworm, Lumbricus terrestris, king of the animals. Alfred says, in the beginning of every worm is the head, where there is an extraordinary string of nerve fibers that transports information from the sensory cells on the worm's skin directly to the lower cerebral ganglion, which is complemented by the upper cerebral ganglion, which amounts to the worm's brain, albeit a very modest brain. For lack of teeth, he gobbles and gulps food through his mouth that has been prepared, cooked, and served up for him by billions of microorganisms. Protostomes, earthworms, are gourmets of a kind. They possess exquisite taste buds in the head region that allow them to distinguish between what they do and do not like. Alfred says, if they do not find their nourishing puree, they prepare, almost cook their own food by pulling whatever they come across into their burrows. Everyone knows that the leaves, feathers, straws that one finds in the early morning hours as if they were planted there by children are being abducted during the hours of darkness by earthworms of all sorts. The leaf of a raspberry bush torn off. A mighty straw will be pulled with such force that it will snap right in the middle. Well, Alfred is not exaggerating in the least. Just look at this. Even Rumpelstiltskin would envy that. During the dinner, worms ensconce their rear ends inside the burrow. Worm home alone. Earthworms urinate via elegantly named nephridiae, 2 on each column, which have funneled lashes that effectively lash urea out of the worm's body. Now, we all know the fantastic sensation of relief when we need a pee and are allowed to let go. Imagine having that lovely sensation all over your entire body. I leave you with these thoughts to dwell on. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you worm's gut. The worm's gut is particularly attractive for microorganisms. It functions as a means of transport, a downright travel agent, as microbes insist on traveling almost exclusively with the excrement of worms. Via the anus at the end of the worm's body, microbes reach their final destination, where they're being ushered in and around beautifully situated worm casts. And action. Took an hour to get this pretty worm to do this, mind. Worms, master, plaster, caster, castings extraordinaire. Lumbricus terrestris, profession, keeper of the Edaphon, Mother Earth, and potential savior of the climate. The most noble and most pure humus is produced by the family of Eisenia foetida I have brought along. Thank you very much. A slightly mineral note with an aromatic hint of spice. Thank you so much. The dear God knoweth how to make good earth, and has shared his secret with a family of earthworms. I vote for the completion of the saying by adding worms' colleagues, microorganisms. They're being kissed and awakened by the action of the worms, just like Sleeping Beauty, slumbering peacefully in the chambers of the earth, awaiting Prince Lumbricus. Sleeping Beauty, in an edition of billions and billions. As soon as she's awakened, she thrives splendidly and multiplies remarkably well. The moment Madame Microbe has reached her final destination, she will carry on for a period of time before once again falling into a deep and restful sleep until the next Prince Lumbricus comes kissingly along. So, to be or not to be digested by Lumbricus terrestris doesn't seem to do microbes any harm, provided they own a thick skin, which doesn't seem to be the case with Salmonella bacteria. They're being practically obliterated. It's a lumbricide. But worms are far from heartless. They are equipped with 5 twosomes of hearts, mighty, ventrally pumping muscular organs which provide a pulsating red bloodstream. And by golly, just look at this connective tissue. It works just like a spiral spring. It is extremely elastic, very resilient, and therefore perfectly shaped to foster Lumbricus's muscle power. Lumbricus terrestris is the Schwarzenegger amongst earthworms, one singular biceps, ring muscles, diagonal muscles, a whole round-up of muscles. 1 kilogram of power may be summed up in 1 square centimeter. Maximum strength can only be rendered within the burrow, naturally. Instead of bones, we find a hydroskeleton, sturdy yet flexible at the same time. The hydroskeleton is divided up in chambers called column. Worms have between 60 and 200 chambers running the length of their bodies. And each of those chambers commands an astonishing set of bristles. These bristles allow worms to brace themselves when birds of a feather try to pull them out of their burrows. Worms don't always win this war of the worlds, and oftentimes a certain number of rear chambers, a few bits and bobs need be abandoned. As long as no vital organs are affected, lost body parts may be regenerated. Moles. Moles are known to hoard living worms in their pantry. They bite through the nervous fiber right behind the modest cerebral ganglion. Worm is alive but cannot move an inch. 1 single mole has been known to have hoarded 800 grams of living worms. Well, it's all right if you don't own a fridge, but Lumbricus plays an important part in the nourishment of bigwigs. Thousands of different worms exist worldwide, and their names are as poetic as the edaphon in which they live. Annelid, Lumbricus festivus, Dendrobena illyrica, Eisenia lucens, Allolobophora chlorotica. Megascolida australis, a worm of 2 to 3 meters of length and a diameter of up to 8 centimeters. And a very pretty one, Aporectodia smaragdina. In Edaphon's souterrain, right under the first residue of plants and organic material, lives the epigeic type of worm, the compost dwellers Eisenia foetida, Dendrodrilus rubidus, Lumbricus rubellus, Dendrobena octraeda noctangular wormling. First basement is occupied by endogeic worms like Aporectodia caliginosa, Aporectodia rosea, and of course, Fräulein's favorite, Allolobophora chlorotica, the little green ploughing worm. He gulps his way through the Edaphon, leaving his little heaps of humus close to the surface. Those worms are the most sensitive to light, as they practically never see the light of day. Souterrain, first and second basement are home to anaic worms, deep burrowing worms like Lumbricus terrestris or Lumbricus badensis. They are big, strong, long-living creatures. They can live up to 7, even 10 years. They procreate less than their epigeic neighbors. Instead, their permanent burrows sometimes are inherited by their descendants or turned into floral pantries, as the case may be. Main season for worms is most certainly springtime and autumn, which thoughtful farmers will pay homage to before tilling or harvesting their fields. Attention, please. Your attention, please. Soil is an acid that cannot be multiplied. What's gone is gone. The Edaphon is destroyed if plowed and tilled too deeply, with machines that are too heavy. The enormous destruction takes place out of sight and without a sound from within the deeper layers of the earth. Soil doesn't scream and shout when it is crushed deep down below. Soils aren't cute or pretty. They don't bleed when harm is done. They don't show signs of reaction when they are strained and stressed. And so we think they are resilient and able to cope with just about anything we want to get out of them. On closer look, this is quite a different story. Ready for the roller coaster ride? It takes different periods of time before soil becomes so tired that nothing will work anymore. Soil fatigue is not a word that Fräulein has invented. It already exists. Sandstorms in Germany, as in the Sahara, aren't a naturally occurring phenomenon. These storms are man-made. Soil can no longer hold its water. It becomes incontinent, and everything that has been poured over it, like pesticides, fertilizer, heavy metals, is being washed out into streams, rivers, lakes, and oceans. In the Edaphon, there live billions and billions of creatures that provide us with life. We can find floralistic root wonder worlds that make the barrier reef seem like a poor imitation of beauty. Fantastic world of roots, origin of life on earth. This rootistic diversity goes hand in hand with the action of the worms, improves the soil structure, preserves water and nutrition for the plants, and turns life in the underworld into a planet of its own. Watch out and take care of the ground beneath your feet, so that it will still be a Garden of Eden for the King of Edaphon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's a pity that you are not here with us today. I know you have something else to do, as you told me, You have to listen to small, chicks.
Yeah, chicks.
Small chicks. They are being born this morning, and you are doing a new project with freshly born chicken. So, we know, but you said you would listen to this performance, and I hope you are with us, and I want you to thank very, very much. I saw this performance already several times, but once over again, I'm, amazed and delighted to see this performance. I saw you live in England at Groundswell, but even on the screen, it's amazing. And I hope that you, Marie, liked it very much. I don't know whether you saw it already. And I think it's a very, very nice also story regarding the soil that she mentions at the end. So we should very much avoid to do any harm to our soils. And I think conservation agriculture is the means to achieve that in that sense. I want to thank you all to be here with us today at this social event, and I hope we can see you again tomorrow. Many, many thanks to all of you, and I still pass over to Wolfgang to make a final remark for today's social event.
It was a great time. I think I pick out Armando with his cowbell. I totally forgot about that. Then I remembered, yes, I had it in the plane. It was not so easy to get it to Brussels and hand it over to you. So you see souvenirs. Thank you very much to everybody of you, and hope to see you sometime somewhere out in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And with this, I close the session for today's first day. Thank you very much, and until tomorrow. Bye-bye to all. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.